Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell from the title, today's video is very love month themed because we are going to be talking about some of my favourite romance books of all time. The way I went through it as well was that I literally just looked on my shelves and picked out all of the romance books that I think were worthy of a mention for today, and lo and behold, I have some real favourite romance authors, and you will see what I mean because there is in particular one author where I have actually featured all of her books but one, and only because I haven't read it yet, so you'll just have to take them as they come really. So yeah, anyway, without babbling on any further, let's get into it. So one of my auto-buy authors when it comes to the romance genre is Miss Ashley Poston herself. She has 3 books so far and every single one have been just so good. If you don't know about Ashley Poston, the way she does her books is it's that supernatural aspect but with like the OG romance components, and I just absolutely love that because it gives that magical realism touch to it. So for the Dead Romantics, we follow our female main character Flo and our male main character Benji. So Flo, I think she's a writer, yeah, so she's a ghost writer, so I love that pun already, and she basically has this really moody editor, Benji. By the way, anything that I tell you right now is not a spoiler, it is literally on the back of the book. So Benji then gets into an accident and Flo is dealing with like a personal family thing somewhere else as well, and she gets a knock on the door. She opens it. It's the ghost of her editor. This book was a perfect mix of funny yet also quite emotional at times. I think that is a theme across her books actually, and this was such a good segue into Ashley Poston's books, and I honestly couldn't recommend this anymore. The second book we have here is quite frankly just an infinite stars out of 5 for me because this is one of my favourites of all time, and it is The 7 Year Slip. You've probably heard about this from everybody and their mamas in the book community, but we follow Clementine and she ends up staying at her late aunt's apartment, but this apartment has magic. The apartment will just keep time jumping, like it's a time traveling apartment and it will go back in time 7 years, and the 7 year before timeline has our female main character living in an apartment with her aunt's friend's nephew, and then she comes out and then she'll come back and it'll be present day. So it's really, I don't know, I find it really difficult to explain, but oh my word, the way this book was written was just absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love this one. This is genuinely one of my comfort books that I will reach out for. So if you really want to give Ashley Poston a go and you don't want to, you know, the other 2 may not be your bag, or you just want to see how it is, because I mean these are standalone books as well, so it's not like you have to read Dead Romantics first if that doesn't sound like the one that you're most interested in. I genuinely feel like this is her best one to date, so I again couldn't recommend this anymore. And then her latest release is another love story, and this one was a really cute premise, but I found that this one fell a little bit short. I think this was out of the 3 my least favourite, but don't get me wrong, I still absolutely loved it. But basically we follow our main character Eileen. So she is on her way to like a book club retreat. She's going through it. I think she just got out of a relationship or something like that, but yeah, she's going through it and then she breaks down and she's in this tiny town and she can't get her car fixed, so she's got to stay in this town for a bit. So she meets like a couple of people and then she sees like what the town actually looks like, and she's like, hang on a minute, this town is literally what my favorite book town is. Wait, does that make sense? This town is basically the town in my book, is what she's saying, and the characters come up, so she's kind of like fully immersed into this world that is based on the town of her favorite series. And there is obviously the idea of the grumpy man that she meets being someone who, is he real, is he not, what happens there, does she get out of it? This was really good, don't get me wrong. I just felt like the ending was rushed a little bit, but do not let that kind of put you off, because honestly this was just such a really interesting plot. And again, that's what I love about Ashley Poston, is that she has some really original sprinkles of magic to the romance genre that I haven't read from anyone else before. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I just haven't read it before. So yeah, I would highly recommend picking up her books. These are such easy reads and just nothing like I have read before. Okay, next up we have my ultimate favourite romance author, just because, oh, if you know, you know, basically. But we have Miss Emily Henry herself. I haven't read You and Me on Vacation, which is her first book, but I will be taking that on a honeymoon next month because I just really want to finish it because I know she's got another book coming. So with Emily Henry books, what I find is that not only does it have like obviously the original components of a romance story, but she really fleshes out the characters, and I love the way that she gives them some sort of inner plot, i.e., you know, one or both of them are going through something that's difficult, and so you kind of get that part of it, kind of more like a contemporary fiction-esque, whilst also having like the romance going on as another plot. And I just really enjoy that because it feels like you're really getting to know these characters and really feeling for them as if they were real. And what I love about the couples and how they're written is that you really imagine like a movie in your head, as cheesy as it sounds. Every time I read Emily Henry books, I have like an idea in my head, everything is set out, and I just absolutely love Emily Henry's books. So the first one we have here is Beach Read. So this is her second book. So this follows January and Gus. They're both writers. So she moves home to deal with some personal business. So she's at her old, like her childhood home, and then next door is like an Airbnb that Gus is renting, and you know, there's kind of like some build up, and then they find out that they both are writers, but one writes, you know, kind of more serious literary kind of books, and she writes more romance and that kind of books as well. But because they're both in a writer's block, they end up making a pact to kind of just like do things to try and get themselves out of this writer's block. And although that's pretty much the plot of like the romance plot, the way that their relationship develops was just so nice. It was just a really like warm feeling. I really enjoyed this one, so definitely give this one a go. Next we have Book Lovers, which follows Charlie and Nora. This has a different trope in a sense that they know each other from the offset. So Charlie is an editor and Nora is a literary agent, and so they often butt heads, etc., and they're in a big city and they're doing all this, and Nora is kind of like who we're focusing on, like her perspective. So she's kind of like, oh, I'm so stressed out. So she ends up going to take a little vacation with her sister at this small town, and so she's trying to relax by doing that, and she walks into a bookstore. Who's there? Mr. Charlie Lasher himself. You get two really uptight people who are very much like competitive, etc., and then you see them kind of provide like a safe space for each other and then help each other through some of the inner turmoils that they're kind of going through. And I just absolutely loved the way that Charlie was with Nora. It was amazing. Next up is probably my favorite romance book of all time, and it's not even because of like just the romance part. Everything about this as a book is just absolutely, it just has my heart, okay? And that is Happy Place. I literally have goose pimples just because I'm talking about this book and how it made me feel, and I'm not trying to be super like cringe or like emotional about it, but genuinely this book has such a special place in my heart. We follow a group of 6 friends, so they are all friends, I think from college or something like that, or just over the years, so they've been friends for a really long time. We are following the main couple, Harriet and Wynne. Every year they go to Maine and do like a just little staycation, just the 6 of them. What the group doesn't know is that Harriet and Wynne called off their engagement, but they wanted to just have one last holiday as the 6 of them before they kind of let their other friends know. So this follows them having to kind of fake date, but it's their fiance, if that makes sense. But what I absolutely loved about this one was all the types of relationships and love that you saw. Just taking Harriet and Wynne first of all, they expressed the reality of long-term relationships, especially ones that you develop from when you are in your 20s to later on, say when you're in your early 30s, which is literally what I've done. And it was really interesting to see how people grow up and you can be together for such a long time, but things are often changing. But there were some lines in there that was just absolutely heart-wrenching. Like, if I could get you with a line from this book: in every universe it's you for me, even if it's not me for you. I'm literally, why am I gonna cry? I also saw a lot of myself in Harriet, because she just wanted to fix everything and she was very much a people pleaser to a fault. I really resonated with that, and the thing that really got me was when she does this thing where she bargains with the universe. And if I'm kind of like going through something, I kind of talk out loud and I say, look, what if I just do this, and then, you know, let's, like, this won't happen. I really got that. Oh my god, why am I getting emotional talking about it? Okay, it was just so true and raw, and it was just very, what's it called, relatable. I also really need to talk about the dynamics of the friendship group, because that really hit home for me as someone who has had the same friendship group since we were kids. And a lot of us met our husbands when we were, you know, in our 18 to like 21, 22, 23 age, and now we're in our like early 30s. We've all kind of seen each other. You know, I see my friends and their husbands, and these are the same people that we used to go out to the clubs till like 3, 4 in the morning with, and now these are the same people that I'm having to, you know, that whole thing of like figuring out how to book something in, and you find yourself having to book some like a 2-hour lunch 3 months in advance because everybody's just so busy, and just kind of like the growing pains. I found that so relatable. Everything about this book just spoke to me, and I think I read it at the perfect time. Maybe if I read it when I was in my early 20s, it wouldn't really make sense to me, but reading it at the time that I read it, it just absolutely made sense. And that is why this is my favorite romance book of all time. The final Emily Henry book that I have here is her latest release, and that is Funny Story. This one was, again, just a really great romance. So Daphne's fiance and Miles' girlfriend are childhood best friends. Coming up to Daphne's wedding, her fiance leaves her because he realizes he wants to be with Petra, his childhood best friend, and with nowhere to go, she basically ends up becoming roomies with the ex-boyfriend of Petra. You guys getting that? So yeah, it's like forced proximity, and it's just kind of like a weird arrangement. Like, I don't think that would ever really happen. What I liked about Miles specifically is that he didn't have his shit together. He was figuring it out still, and he gave me very strong like Nick Miller vibes, if Nick Miller was like dark and broody, if that makes sense. Definitely one of my favorites. Now we are moving on to what is my favorite romance series of all time. Cowboy romance girly. So we of course had to get Chestnut Spring series in here. This is a bunch of spicy cowboy romance books, and these are literally the best thing to have ever just come to my life, honestly. So just for the background here, the males are like the main characters in this series. We have 3 brothers who have like a kind of adopted brother and then like a friend. So that's what makes the 5. And they have really different tropes throughout them, and they are all connected, but you can, I suppose, read them kind of separately, but I would probably say definitely read in order. Number 1 was a great introduction to the Chestnut Spring series. We have Flawless. So this follows Rhett. He is a cheeky like bull rider, and he's a little bit too naughty, so his PR, like his manager or something like that, I can't remember, sends his daughter to work with him to kind of babysit him essentially. So it's that forced proximity slash like forbidden, because it's like, oh, that's my boss's daughter or something like that. But genuinely, the way that the chemistry was set out in this was so good. Again, it was just a really good way to get into the series. This is probably one of my lesser favorites out of the series, purely because I think I've said it before, where I find that the first book in a series sacrifices part of its quality to help set the scene, whereas the other, you know, following books can kind of get away with not having to do that. But this was definitely so good, and just like a lovely way, like I said, to get into it. But then we have book 2, which is my favorite of all of this, and every like cowboy romance ever. We have Heartless, and this follows Cade Eaton. He is the grumpy older brother of Rhett. He is just so grumpy, and he's like, he just has the world on his shoulders, and he's a single dad, and he's just like, oh, it's just so grumpy. So we've got Mr. Grumpy, and then in comes Miss Sunshine, and I love Willa, but she's like Miss Sunshine in a way that she's cheeky, she doesn't care, she's like happy-go-lucky, and she like pushes Cade out of his comfort zone. Anyway, so he was looking for a nanny for his son, and Summer from the first book said, oh, my best friend Willa will probably be a really good fit for this because she's looking for something for the summer. In comes this fiery redhead, and she just, I don't know, she just peels his layers again, so to speak. There was a bit in the end though that I was like, ooh, don't know if I like that, but this is still my favorite one of all of the series. Next we have Powerless, which follows Jasper and Sloane. This one follows a little bit of a hockey vibe to it. So Sloane is the cousin. She is like an uppity ballerina who has, you know, she's from a very well-off family who puts all this like pressures on her to be like the best at what she does, to marry this kind of guy. And then Jasper is like the adopted brother of the Eton boys, and there's always like this running joke, it's like, oh, you're kissing cousins kind of thing. But it doesn't get weird like that. It's no Credence, that's for sure. Jasper is like this big hockey star, and he kind of comes back to the ranch now and again, but Sloane is like his best friend. Like, this is the only friends to lovers book that I feel like I actually really just loved. This was, again, great. Friends to lovers. The fourth book follows Theo and Winter. Winter is Summer's sister. They don't have the best relationship, but they're working on it. And Theo is the kind of like the prodigy of Rhett from the first book, so he's a little bit younger, so it's a bit of an age gap in that sense. This is a trope that I know some people don't like, but I actually really enjoyed the trope in this. Again, not a spoiler, it's the back of the book, surprise pregnancy. Let me tell you, this book did it so well just because of how the communication was kind of set out. So Theo being like the younger guy, you wouldn't have thought much to come out of the way he would communicate with Winter, but when he did, it was so good that it just was so satisfying that he was just like, no, we're not going to do this miscommunication thing, we're going to talk it out. Last but not least, we have Hopeless, and this one is so he's a cowboy, but it's giving like army romance, like the Nicholas Sparks kind of vibe. So he is the second oldest brother, I believe, so he's the middle brother, I believe, and he was like in the special forces, but then something happens and he comes back and it absolutely changes who he is. So he's kind of like a recluse, he just doesn't really talk to anybody, he's just, something's changed. And then our female main character is Bailey, who is the youngest daughter of like basically like a rivalry family, but it's like they're basically like the scum of the town, like her brothers, and they treat her so shitty and all of that, and they basically agreed to a fake engagement thing just to kind of help each other out. This was a very enjoyable book. Now I just have 4 books that are just, I think they're part of series or they're standalones, I don't know, but 3 is definitely part of a series. 1 I think is a standalone, but I really enjoyed them. We have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is from the Maple Leaves series. Maple Hills, that's the one. Hockey romance, spicy as hell, don't let this cover for you. There was something about this book that I just really enjoyed. I absolutely ate this up. I liked the dynamics of the golden retriever boyfriend and the black cat girlfriend. I absolutely love that. It's just like your typical hockey college romance, nothing too crazy on that, but just an entertaining book if you're into that hockey romance genre. Next we have The Roommate by Rosie Dannon. This one was a bit of a wild card for me because I didn't know how much I would like it. Turns out, absolutely enjoyed it. It was just so funny but also so nice because basically we have our female main character Clara, who is like a good girl, and then you have her roommate Josh, who is an adult film star, and I think that's just like funny, just the idea of these 2 people living under the same roof. But the way that they help each other in this book was what really set it like aside from the others for me. I've not really heard too many people talk about this one, but I would genuinely say give this one a go, and it was just a real good time honestly reading this one. Next is Abby Jimenez, Just for the Summer. This is her first book that I've read. I did not realize that this was part of the Part of Your World and Yours Truly series, I believe, but I read it and I think they're just interconnected standalones, so it is what it is. This one had me like a bit teary, I won't lie. I don't know, it was just really nice to see them support each other despite what they were going through, and again, I just love a nice male main character like that is kind, and this is definitely that. Like, Justin is the definition of if he wanted to, he would. And then last but not least is another 5-star for me, and I absolutely ate this up. I didn't think I would love this as much as I did, but I did, and that is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. One of the things I really liked about this is the refreshing representation of the characters' disabilities and just how it was part of the story rather than a description, or even so going to complete other end of the spectrum, everything that they were. The camera died again, so I'm just gonna literally film on my phone for this last clip because there's actually just one more book. I like the surprise pregnancy trope, but I just don't know if that's like my favorite. But this, genuinely, the way that they were with each other and the way that he looked after her was just brilliant. The miscommunication there was very realistic and understandable, and for the most part they did communicate quite clearly with each other. I also really enjoyed the side characters and how who is often like, oh, that's not my bag. Again, just a nice male main character. Apparently that's just all I need, so yeah. So guys, those were all of the romance books that I would recommend that you pick up because they were all absolutely amazing. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!